Hello and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 171 at scavengerlife.com. We're talking about what's going on in our store this week.
Yep, and we just wanted to say welcome to anyone who's never heard us before. It's always good for us to do that real quick, just in case someone has stumbled upon us.
Stumbled in the ether of the internet.
You know, you've seen our video on a YouTube, and you play it, and then you don't see anyone talking. It's just us. It's just like this. Why is there a podcast on YouTube? Right?
Yeah, people tend to ask us that. They're very flummoxed.
Yeah, but you know, we're just a couple who live in rural America, and we make a full-time living on eBay, and now we post a couple podcasts every week at ScavengerLife.com.
Several times a month.
Several times a week.
Several times a week,
yes.
Even. Yes, that's true.
At ScavengerLife.com. And also, we have very strong opinions about how things are done, but we just have to be really clear. We have strong opinions about what works for us.
Right.
So sometimes people seem to comment, or we get people who, you know, have their own very strong opinions, and that's great. You know, it's ultimately it's whatever works for you it's your scavenging life. We just like to talk about what goes on in our life because it's fun, and we like to hear it's what other people think.
And we learn from other people all the time on the podcast and on the blog comments.
Yep.
So, you know, as set in our ways as we might seem, I mean, we'll take advice from people. We'll use tips that people, you know, give us all the time.
We're always about experiments, and if someone can prove to us with its numbers or logic that a way is better than what we're doing,
we'll try it.
We have no problem switching over and trying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, we are not premier experts. We just do what works for us, and we like to share it, and we like to talk to other people.
Yep. So it is Saturday night, and it has been 1 week since our last podcast. We are still in Manhattan. We've been here for a week. We're here for another 2 days. And
I know. I'm like, we've already done another podcast here. We're still here.
Yeah, it's been a great trip. I mean, and this is what selling on eBay full time allows us to do, is that we can take these kind of weeks where we're still working, and we're going to talk about that. I mean, we've still been selling through our store. Yep. We've still been scavenging. We just happen not to be doing it at home,
right?
And we get to be in a city that we love and see our
and do
friends.
Other things. Yeah, go out to eat, go see movies. You know,
it's that flexibility that really is one of the things that, like, when it's one of those really boring days and we're like a listing and it just seems like drudgery and just data entry, and you're just like, I'm a grown adult and this is what I'm doing. I've got to remember weeks like this.
Yeah.
Because before, when I had a regular job, you know, I'd be lucky to get 10 days off a year.
A year, yeah.
You know, and there was so much pressure to make those 10 days really special. Now it's like, we came here for 9 days, and, you know, we were just being real casual and calm.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't trying to cram in a lot of vacation stuff.
We did go out and do stuff a lot.
Yep.
Plus, we would, like, split the day up, you know. It's like, you know, we'd sleep late and then stay in and do work, and then we're like, okay, let's go see a movie and then go have dinner, and that's our night. You know?
And we saw friends here, and we were lucky. We had a couple friends who happened to be here from out of town, who we met up with, and that was real neat. So.
From London.
Yep.
So that was a real coincidence that they were in town. So that was neat.
It was cool.
Yeah.
And also, your family came in town?
Yes. So my brother lives here in town. So my mom, as everybody knows, from Massachusetts. So her and her husband took the train down, and we actually did a couple podcasts with them that we're going to be publishing.
Yep.
You guys will hear it. We sat them down. We're like, we know you're in New York and you want to have fun, but we're going to record some podcasts.
Yeah. It was good.
But that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah.
So we'll publish those soon.
It was nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our numbers. It's this week. I'm sure I saw some other people talk on the blog about this. This week was really slow for us.
It's Christmas.
Like, it's Christmas. I mean, oh my God. Like, it was probably one of the slowest weeks we've had all year long.
Yeah, it was really slow.
I mean, I was going to be amazed if we even made $1,000.
Right.
It was like...
eking.
But then Christmas Day happened, and we sold as much on Christmas Day as we had the entire week.
It was so weird. It was like we were hanging out during the day, and just sales just kept happening.
It was like people woke up, opened up its presents, and then suddenly they didn't get what they thought they were going to get, and so they started buying so much.
Yes.
And then the next day and today, I mean, so it's been...
Yeah.
It seems like on Christmas Day, after that, it's been great. And that seems to have worked for us in the past several years, is that January is always a really good month for us, just because, again, I think people have it's gift cards or money or they, again, they're buying things that they actually really want,
Yeah, I think that's totally part of it.
So, okay, so we're about its numbers. Let me shut up a second about all that stuff. So, our gross sales were about $1,700, and that's on about 35 items.
Right.
So, our average price was about $48 or so, and that's actually
a good average price.
Yeah, I mean, last week we made $2,600, so it's I mean. Again, those of you who are either new eBayers or you're new to actually watching your numbers week to week, that's very typical to us, and we don't really freak out about that. How 1 week we make a lot, the next week we don't make quite as much. We're always about averaging it out. And there was a woman on the blog who today had commented about her own its numbers, where now that she's started to keep track of its numbers week to week and watch other people's its numbers because other people post their numbers to our blog, you see that really it kind of, I don't know how it happens. It's basically kind of steady,
Yeah.
I mean, none of us have any ability to make people buy from us.
Exactly.
But yet everyone always does, and it's kind of a mystery. The only thing I can say is it's just like a natural hunger of the consumer, especially Americans, I mean, I think Americans just naturally want to spend their cash. Like, we aren't big savers, we don't save a lot of cash. Like, as soon as you have some cash, if you want to buy something cool, hey, that's what makes this country great, I guess, I mean, so that's the only way I can explain it, good or bad. That's just it's the way it is, and that's and the only way people can buy from you is if you actually list your items.
Right, your stuff is online.
That's why we always say, always be a listing.
Don't let that stuff sit there and not be listed.
Don't do that thing where it's every so often we get an email from that person that's like, I've listed 100 things. Not a lot of things are selling. I'm waiting.
100.
I'm waiting till these 100 things sell, and then I'll list more. Like, it's a logic that doesn't make sense.
Right.
I'll list 100 things, then list another 100, and then another 100. Like,
you do that 30 times.
Yeah, exactly. The cool thing about this week was, even though our sales weren't as high as it has been in other weeks, our cost of the items that we sold
were low.
Was only $75. So basically, it was like an average of like $2 an item that sold.
That's so funny. And our highest price item that we sold, we found in the trash at an estate sale.
Yeah, it was for about $200. We sold this like mid-century trash can.
Yeah, it's a trash can or an umbrella stand.
Yeah.
I can't tell. It's one or the other.
But it's but it's wood. It's a walnut trash can.
Yeah.
Or it's trash can umbrella stand.
Yeah.
It's really got a funky look to it. But we were at an estate sale.
Yeah.
And it was the last day. They were actually closing up, and we talked about this as recently on one of our podcasts. And estate sale was doing what they always do. They're closing down, and they're starting to throw stuff away.
Yeah.
And so
put stuff out on the curb.
We didn't find anything inside. We go back out to the car, and I see that there's this awesome trash can that they just put by the curb and I grabbed it.
Total mid-century. And this was one of those estate sales. I think we talked about this estate sale recently, maybe, where the owner of the house and her husband were at the estate sale.
Right.
And they were making it very hard for people to buy stuff cheap.
They were like super fancy, so I don't know if maybe they were being forced to sell their house and all their stuff, so they were
wanting to sell it.
Hostile owners, which, hey, I don't blame them if their stuff was being sold off. And
yeah, that's too bad. But we ended up not buying very much from them and finding the most valuable thing in the trash. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting how, like, that's how it happens sometimes, where an hour it's before that trash can probably had, like, a $50 price tag.
Right.
And then an hour later, it's not worth anything.
That trash can's in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's...
right. So
I mean, that's a good example of just scavenging.
Pure scavenging.
Some of it's just luck, being in the right place at the right time. We'd been going to estate sales all day. That was probably the fourth or fifth one.
That's right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just random.
There's no way I could have, guessed that. And then, 6 months later it sells and we make a nice $200.
It sold to someone down the street in New York City.
Yeah, right. We have to go home and ship it to them.
Yep. Okay, so this week, while we've been in New York, we've been checking out Craigslist, like the free and the cheap and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so anytime we go to a new place or we go off somewhere, we're always scavenging. Yeah, and we're always trying to think of different ways to do it. And this was, now that we go to these urban areas, we've been trying out going on Craigslist.
Yeah, look on the free. Like, what do they give away for free here? And what do they give away for cheap?
Yeah, it's free, or I'll just look at, it's what's selling under $20.
Right.
So, like, the first day we were here, I looked and someone was trying to sell a Tumi bag.
So Tumi is this high-end luggage. It's Tumi. If you look it up on eBay, you'll see it's like high-end leather luggage.
And we only know that because we sold another one several months ago.
Yeah.
I never heard of it. Now I have.
Right. And so this guy was selling this Tumi bag. It was a leather backpack, brand new practically. And I think he had like $50 on it. We talked him down to 30, and then I met him uptown, like 96th Street on the corner of the street.
Upper West Side, and just got it.
I just handed him $30.
$30, and hopefully we can sell it for, $200.
250, hopefully, because that is a nice bag.
And then we went to, and we're speaking specifically to the other scavengers here in New York who we've talked to.
Yes.
We went to Housing Works. That's kind of like the fancy thrift store.
Yeah, it's a high-end thrift store.
It's New York.
It has high-end fashion.
Yeah, it's like you go there and that's where all the Gucci stuff is.
Yeah, there's
Fendi and...
I mean, the good thing is they're low prices for that quality item, but they're still high for scavengers.
Right, they're still, $75.
Shoes are $50, $60, $70.
But it's cool. We went to the one off of Houston in Soho, and we went right before it closed. It was the day before it's Christmas, and they had a 20% off sale. We found a piece of fabric, like 4 yards of fabric.
Yeah, it was funny, and we're going to talk about this in another podcast, because we actually did a whole podcast with my mom about fabric.
Because people have been asking us about that.
Yeah, so we are doing a podcast about fabric. But Jay hands me this, pile of fabric, and I'm just like, it doesn't look like anything,
It's just like an olive green...
it's a corduroy.
Right.
So, but the thing was, it's like a super high-end Italian brand. It's cotton and silk, and it had the original price tag on it, which maybe we shouldn't say that until people have to listen to the fabric one to know.
I mean, let's just say it.
Okay, so the original price tag for 4 yards of fabric was over $2,000.
Which... I know. I felt the same way.
We were like, how is that?
It's so ridiculous. But then if you look up, it's got the
brand.
A selvage on the side.
Yeah. That's the printing on the side
I
that has
learned
the brand.
From your mom.
Is it called selvage? Yeah, something like that.
And you look at the brand. It's just, again, It's a different world from the one we live in.
Come from.
It's in the world where people are willing to pay $500 a yard for fabric, for silk and cotton, and it's just designer made in Italy. And it's just one of those things where they're willing to put a high price on it, and they're people that have so much money. They don't care.
And New York is the center of fashion.
Yeah.
So it could be some crazy fashion designer in some crazy fashion house.
Right.
They're like, well, we don't need this, you know?
So anyway, we've been talking about being able to take a risk, spending more on items so that you make more. We paid like $70.
It was 60, yeah. $60.
For these 4 yards of fabric, and we're going to see. I mean, even if we only make $500,
it's still, it's still great. I'm laughing, you know?
So it's interesting.
Yeah, that was quite a find.
And then we got a couple more knickknacks. There's several housing works that we kind of went to. It was more just casual
little stuff.
But then I went on the Housing Works website, and I'm surprised no one has said this. They have a fill-a-bag store,
bag sale store
in Sunset, and so in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And, it's just like the Goodwill outlets that people talk about, where it's,
right.
I mean, instead of it being by the pound, it's just, you get like a shopping bag, and you fill it up for $25.
Yeah, you dig through bins, just like we talk about, and you fill up. It's not a huge bag, but it's a good sized bag. Right. I mean, $25 is a little high, but you can find high end items.
So we went, and we actually went with Ryan's mom,
my mom,
and her husband. So it was funny. They were like, they don't care. They're super good.
They're into it, man. They'll dig through the bins.
We did it in the way that you shouldn't do it at these places, where we went like later in the morning, and we show up, and the regulars are already there.
They've already picked through everything.
And I'm sure this happens at the Goodwill outlets.
Yeah.
All the regulars have a huge pile in front of them.
Yeah.
Because they've grabbed everything they can get their hands on that got put out that day. And then they just spend the rest of the day just going through each one. One guy even had his phone out.
He was looking on eBay.
He had the eBay app out. And he would he had this huge pile, and he would just pick up a pair of shoes. He would search it. He'd be like, yep, I'll keep it. And then he put it in his bag. Or, nope, I don't. It's one. And he would put it back. And so we were kind of going through the stuff none else wanted. But the cool thing is that they were all into shoes and jackets. Right. And they were they didn't look at all these bags.
These bags, man. We found all these nice bags. Because we sell luggage. So... we found nice messenger bags.
Well, because again, this is one of those things that gets shoved in the corner when you're at a thrift store very often. There's like this big pile of like briefcases and bags, and a lot of it's really junky
because it is junky.
But then you realize like some of it's Samsonite or American Tourist, or
A couple weeks ago, I was looking through the dusty, dirty ass bags in our regular thrift store where we have the bag sale. I found a black leather Bali from Switzerland briefcase. Wow. Beautiful.
Yep.
In the junkiest place. Yep. I'm like, I don't know who donated this, but I'm taking it, So
anyway, at this Housing Works, it's fill-a-bag. We filled our bags with bags. And so, we found...
I found a designer leather purse, actually. We found a Timbuktu messenger bag. Those are always great because they're so sturdy. They last forever.
Yep. Like I found a Samsonite computer bag.
Samsonite's always a good brand because that's like a high quality.
So we
brand.
spent $50
on two bags.
On 2 bags full of stuff. We brought it home. We bought about 20 items. Yeah. And I bet we'll make. I mean, again, I always hate this, so forgive me. I think we could make $1,000. Yeah. We don't know.
Could. One of those handbags that I found is, it's called Makowski. Someone will know. I wasn't familiar with it, but my mom was like, yes, get that bag. I mean, they sell for $300. Yeah. So
again, I think that's the example of when you go to any place, I feel like as long as you have a wide enough palette.
Yes.
You can always find something
that's
because
cool.
everyone will focus on that one thing and will ignore the other thing.
Right.
Everyone has their little niche, and these people happen to be going for the designer shoes. They're really into the shoes. So
we were like, we're not looking at those.
I did find a pair of SAS shoes.
Not quite designer.
Because I guess it's New York people don't understand that. Like people in the Midwest pay big money for a pair of nice
SAS. They pay $100
SAS shoes. Yeah,
$100 for those SAS sneakers.
Come on, us country people, we got to stick together. We know that.
Yep.
Okay, so the other thing was we talked about a watch that I had bought at a thrift store. It's a Mickey Mouse, like a Disney.
It's a 1948 Mickey Mouse watch.
Right. And so I bought it for $5. It turned out it was broken. It had been overwound.
Yeah. So it wasn't quite broken. It was just overwound.
Sorry, it was overwhelmed. Because, people these days don't understand that there's actually wind-up. His watches don't have a battery. I'm sure some guy picked it up and just kept winding it.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it work?
Yeah.
So anyway, we brought it here it's New York, and we took it to a watch shop.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to pay $150 to have it
repaired and
fixed.
then shipped back to us.
We don't do that very often, but in this case, we think it could sell for between $500 and $900, depending on the market out there.
Yeah. When I brought it to the watch shop, they were looking at it and they were just like, you know what this is, right? And I was like, I was kind of playing dumb. I was just like, yeah, it's old, right? It's like from the 40s or something. They're like, this watch is worth $900 easily. Yeah. But, eBay gets different prices depending. Yep. But they said they could fix it.
Yep.
And I was happy with that. I told them I got it at a thrift store for $5, and they just stared at me. And they were like...
But again, this is another thing where we've all been talking about being willing to take a risk. So we're going to be in on this watch for about $150 before anything, and then we're going to list this thing, and then the hope is we make 4 or 5 or more times what we paid.
And the hope is when you do a repair like this, because we've done a repair like this on a camera, that because you can say without a doubt, it was just serviced by this professional place in New York.
Right.
That has a reputation, and so people are like, oh, great, I'm going to get it and it's going to work, you know, so.
Yep. So it's really, we've had a great time here in it's New York, and now it's almost the last day. We have it's more days here, and now we're starting to figure out how do we take it all home. Yeah. So I actually brought my big military bag, my like a canvas,
the big duffel
bag, that I brought all of our food in. And now we're going to we
ate all the food.
We've eaten all the food, and now I have this empty bag, and now my duffel bag's full, and now we're seeing if we can't put it into our other bags, and we might have to ship. I
think we're going to ship a box of our clothes home,
right?
Frankly.
Because we're going to carry the heavier stuff, and then
because we have quite a bit of stuff,
a light stuff.
I might do it FedEx, depending on the weight. FedEx ground. Because
we've had time, we've been able to scavenge here successfully. Again, I think when I hear the people who live here and they have full-time jobs and they're trying to scavenge, I can see how it would be tough because you're competing against the people who are scavenging full-time. Right. But if you didn't have to work a full-time job and you could be one of those people, we found plenty of good stuff.
And we were willing to, as we've talked about recently, spend more because hopefully we'll make more.
Right. But also about having time. So I've had in my browser, it's New York Craigslist, and I've got it's free stuff page. Yep. And I click on, has to have an image, and it's posted today. Right. And it's refresh it every couple hours when I'm on my computer. And it drives me crazy because if I lived here, there's so much stuff that I would get.
Good stuff.
I would have to travel, but people are giving away TVs, just electronics, dishes. It's like
just great stuff.
A vacuum cleaner.
IKEA bookshelf. I want that.
Yeah. I really feel like you could...
Ooh, a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, right? Some Starbucks mugs that someone's giving away.
Where are they?
They're in the East Village.
That's very close to here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go get them.
You want some... So, the stuff is out there. You just have to think of, like, different places. Okay, so customer issues.
Yes.
We have, like we always do, we've continued to sell all this week.
Yeah.
And what we do is we just change our handling time before we leave. So anytime someone buys an item, it says this will not get shipped for 10 business days?
Yeah, I set the buffer a little bit longer because we decided that last time.
Instead of having it be right when we get back, there's like 3
extra days.
Right.
So people aren't like, you said you shipped today.
Right. So, out of all the things we've sold since we've been gone, one person has said they
needed it sooner.
Money
so
back.
I refunded
But that's only one person in 20-something things.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. We did have we sold a bike helmet to someone before we left.
Right.
And this guy wrote back and he says on the inside of the helmet there should be these Velcro padding things. So when you put it's like I don't know what you call it, like a styrofoam helmet.
It's just like hard. A bike. That's what all bike helmets are made of.
But I guess there's padding that had probably fallen out, even though the helmet had been in great shape. And so he wanted to buy the brand, the very expensive pads.
Right.
So we actually gave him $15 back. But
yeah, because the generic pads are like $8. So originally I was like, I'll give you $10 back, and I just refunded him. And he's like, I spent $13, and I was like, I'm just gonna give him $5, just because he's being kind of like an asshole about it.
It was all good, but we love selling bike helmets because normally that's another one of those things that often gets overlooked at yard sales.
We sell bike helmets all the time.
And it's got to be certain brands. It can't be the cheap like Bell.
Yeah,
it's going to be like
though?
Hero.
I will say I've not tried to sell Bell, like little kids' helmets and stuff.
Right.
Well, there's adult helmets by them too, but we usually go for like the brands that people who are cyclists,
right? Specialized
or Giro or whatever it's called. Yeah,
right. And so now we know it's got to have that padding inside, and so I think,
or we need to say you have to get padding for it and put cheaper price. I
think those are ones that we could probably just buy a bunch of padding and put in there. So we learned something new.
That's a lesson learned.
Customers happy.
But like Jay said, those things like skater helmets and bike helmets, they are overlooked in the thrift store. People just think it looks like junk, and they do sell. If you clean them up, they sell all the time.
Right. For $30, $40.
$30-$40.
So if you can get them for $5 or less,
you're doing well.
You're good to go.
Yeah. They're fun, I think.
So things we learned in the comments this week on the blog.
Yeah.
Again, it was a little bit quieter. It's this week because I'm assuming
people are, I don't know, celebrating Christmas or something.
Why don't you people doing eBay all week?
Yeah, what the hell?
So, but, last week we talked about eBay seemed to have turned off the global shipping program on any item that didn't have dimensions. And since they didn't require dimensions...
They've never required
most of us didn't have them on our listings.
Right. So what was funny was right after that podcast, we talked about it, whatever, I started selling stuff on global shipping. Like I noticed the address was Kentucky, and I started selling a lot of stuff on global shipping. And I was like, okay, I think they turned that rule off.
Right.
We don't know if it's because people called or they were just experimenting.
Here's what I think what happened.
Yeah.
Was that the people in Kentucky told eBay, guys, we're getting all these boxes that are oversized. We didn't know that they were oversized. We didn't charge enough to cover this, so we can't do this. So someone at eBay is like, okay, just turn it all off.
Yeah.
They have to put the dimensions in. And then all the sellers, like a lot of us called and were pissed.
Right.
And so, they have some big board is meeting, and they're like, it's Christmas time, we have to sell. Let's just take a hit on it,
Right.
And then they just said, let's turn it back on. All of this stuff is fantasy in my head, but this is what I'm assuming. And then I'm assuming after the holidays, they're going to make an announcement that you have to have
dimensions
in there or they won't sell. So even though we've been selling global shipping now,
this week, yeah,
we went ahead and added dimensions.
I went ahead and
sorry. Sometimes it's we. This time it's Ryan.
So, well, I'll just say I use the technique that everyone talked about in the comments of the bulk lister. You say, add dimensions, and then you delete the zeros on the weight, so that it says custom weight, and you delete the zeros, so it just keeps your weight. And I did it for all our listings. I went category by category, so I could estimate, okay, all pants go in a poly mailer, so this is the size they would be. All, housewares, I'll do, the 12 by 8 by 8 box from USPS. It's just a guess, know.
And that is one of the, interesting things about having a store. One of its benefits is the ability to categorize all of our inventory in these different, categories.
Detailed categories.
So it was, because Ryan actually was doing this, and she was like, hey, we have 100 belts. Oh. We have 300 men's sweaters.
That was really funny to go through and see how many, because I never really go through and see how many.
Because you know why? We list it and forget it.
I don't want to know. Yeah. We had men's shirts. It was 270 men's shirts. Yeah. It was you definitely listed all those last month. Right. That's a lot.
We have 1,200 housewares.
Yeah, no, it was less than that, but it was crazy. But housewares to me is a catch-all.
Right.
It's I'm here's a pennant flag.
Right.
What would I even put that? Well, it could be artwork.
I mean, kind of when we will have these catch-all categories, and then when it gets too big, we start being let's dig in there
and put it
and start to separate stuff out.
Yeah, so I did that.
So anyway, I have no idea if they're going to have another problem with global shipping, but we just decided let's just add the dimensions, so if someone decides to turn it off, again, we won't be affected.
It'll be done.
And this is one of those things, it's a good example of eBay and why I know people get crazy about it, and it does suck, but big deal.
I mean, the thing was that I think you have a good attitude about it, because that first phone call where I was like, I'm so mad. And then you literally were like, wait, so people can still buy stuff from us. It just reverts to USPS priority with full tracking and insurance. I'm like, yeah. You're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
It's just, I get it. And you do all this work and everything's humming along.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything that changes that, I hate it too. Yeah. But it's not,
Yeah.
So our coming week, we're going home in a couple days.
Yep.
And anytime we go home from a trip, there's always 2 or 3 days of
packing,
transitioning.
Yeah.
We're packing.
Yeah.
We're just getting back into the routine of our lives.
Exactly.
And then we have basically 5 weeks before we take another trip.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yep. So we actually have a work trip for the other kind of work that we do. And so we have 5 weeks, and our big thing is just continue to list.
Yeah.
Now, something that it's Nancy was talking about, we're talking about, our goals for 2015. And she, like a lot of people's, just this year, she really worked on bulking up her inventory. Yeah. I think she went from having 100 or 200 things
to 500, right?
1,000 things.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I mean,
wow, that's a big
That's very
deal.
Impressive. But she said she's actually not making as much money as she had used to, because I guess a lot of the stuff she's been putting up has been low-priced items.
Yeah.
And that's really, I hear that,
Yeah.
We have low-priced items too. And that's what I'm doing right now is, I said this is last week, where we have 36 plastic bins of stuff on our porch. And this is the stuff where we go and scavenge.
Yeah.
We get like, a carload of stuff. We go to an auction or a flea market and we just get a bunch of stuff. We put it out on the floor. We pull out the stuff that's exciting or we think will sell for a lot.
Do that first.
And we deal with that stuff first. And then often the stuff that maybe we weren't that excited about but got anyway gets put into one of these plastic bins.
Right.
And, some of the stuff could be a year and a half old.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through the stuff now, and this might be maybe what, as Nancy does too, I'm trying to be stricter now.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, this isn't actually cool. This is not going to be worth my time, and we're going to give this away.
I think it's hard though because as scavengers, you do kind of get attached to how cool something is, even though it's little and it's cheap. You're just like, I know someone's looking for this, so how do you detach? Like, I don't want to keep it, but it's that attachment to selling it,
Yeah.
So how do you...
Well, also, I guess what we're doing is maybe in the old days we might have put this stuff up for, $5, $9.99.
Yeah.
Now we're like, okay, we're going to put it up, but we're going to put $30 on it. That's a little insane.
Right.
But in the right person's eye...
Yeah.
It could be worth that.
A slotted aluminum spoon.
Yep.
Sold for $30.
Exactly. So, because I think we've gotten better at that about being able to describe items in a way that it would attract those kind of people.
Right.
Yes,
that's the point. Like, I've been doing some shopping on eBay where... like actually trying to do what Chris the Coin Guy does, where he buys stuff low on auction and then resells it for high. I'm kind of doing my own experiment. I guess we can talk about that another time. But people describe things so poorly.
Yep.
I did 10 minutes of research and realized, I have to describe it like this to search properly.
Right. Yep.
And yet and I've been reading all these descriptions by people and they will literally say, I'm not an expert. I don't know what this is. I haven't looked it up. Literally, some people have said, I'm too lazy.
Right.
Said that in their descriptions or their messages to me when I ask about it. I'm too lazy. Wow.
Ryan was showing me a series of photos that this one guy took where I guess he had either wiped the lens with his hand, but the photos were all like hazy.
Like misty.
Right.
And I was like, he took a shitty picture this time. I looked at his store. They were all like
It's like he took photos of a bunch of stuff and he was like, it's no big deal.
Oh my God.
So.
I guess I forget that those people... I looked at the page and I said, this reminds me of 1999.
Right.
This was eBay in 1999 where anyone could get away with this because this was so new.
Yeah.
Can't believe people can get away with it now, but they can.
But then I also have to say that I talked about those pants and shirts that I spent. I still have another 2 folders of pants.
I feel like I spent my life.
So I'm actually not quite done, but I spent a good 3 weeks. Of listing all the shirts and most of the pants.
Yeah, you're like a robot machine doing it.
And and I've said it before. It's good because it taught me. I'm not excited about that stuff.
I'm not going to buy that stuff.
And you know what? I've actually passed by pants. Yep. I'm just like, those are cool. I'm not buying them.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll sell. I don't want to sell them, But the thing is, though, on the other hand, we've been selling either a couple pairs of pants or shirts every week since I did that.
Several pairs.
We're making, $50 to $100 a week now on shirts and pants.
Yeah.
So I put in 2 to 3 weeks of work, and now we're getting the payoff.
Yeah.
$50 to $100 every week, and this might be for the next handful of months.
Right.
So actually, I guess anything will work if you really go all in on it. Yeah.
But I think also what it teaches you when you go all in like this, crazy amount of shirts and a crazy amount of pants, you start to realize you should only buy the ones that sell for $50 because we've sold several pants for $40, $50 easily.
Right.
And we're like, if we see pants, it can only be those ones. Not like regular, like $19 pants. That does not work for us. That's not enough.
It's like Polo Sport or something like that. Like
right.
Crappy.
Just the bad brands.
Generic, yeah.
So basically, I think it teaches you to really like whittle down what you're gonna buy in the future.
Right.
Very quickly, you know.
So it was cool, again, like as Nancy and some others were talking about their goals for 2015. And, I think that we all kind of see it the same way. I think that we all say the same thing. We all realize it takes just as much time to list a $5 item as it does a $500 item.
Right.
Or a $5,000 item. The amount of time is the exact same for the most part,
Yeah.
Maybe a little more. It's research on the more expensive item.
A little more photos, a little more description. But
honestly, it's not that much more for the amount of profit you get. Now, the challenge is, and so that's easy to say.
Sure.
I'm willing to spend $500 if I know I can make $5,000.
Okay, great.
That's a great abstract concept.
Yeah.
I think for me, the real challenge is where
is that
where
stuff?
are we going to find those items?
And the challenge is, just like you said, finding it, but also it's that risk of like, you don't know for sure. Like you might look at completed listings and you're like, but that one was special because why?
Well, I mean, it's also those kind of items often don't sell right away.
Right.
Like if you want that strong $5,000 price,
you gotta wait.
It might take a year
you gotta find the right person
to sell. And the other thing is, those, in my experience so far, not an expert, those kind of items are hard to find consistently.
Yeah.
Like every so often we'll sell something for, $500.
Yeah.
But it's not every week. It's often not every month, So, when people talk about, I'm just going to turn it's my business into, I'm just going to sell the $500 and $5,000 items.
Right. I've heard several people
I just laugh because that's not really like a choice that you easily make. It's more a goal that you then try and strive for. So we're definitely going to be willing to try and find those things and then be willing to invest. But in the meantime, we'll continue to do our business as like we have been.
I think it's two parts. It's that willingness to pay more, which I've found we've been doing while we're in New York.
Yep.
You handed me a pair of boots this morning at a Goodwill in the most random part of New York, and they were $20. And I was like, I'm going to buy these because I know I'll make possibly $200. That's because of my research in the past. But what if I don't make that much money? What if they're only worth $75?
Right.
I just have to be willing to, hold on to them for the person who's willing to pay that much,
But we love that everyone is saying that.
Yeah.
I would love to have a community and be a part of a community where we're all upping our game. I would love to hear people talk about something they find at an estate sale and they were willing to spend $600 on a painting that they sell for $3,000. I want to hear those stories, and we'd love to see examples too. And
we've heard some examples of that this year, like some artwork that Linda sold. I mean,
right. But I think in a reality, we're not going to just totally change our business where that's all we sell. I think it's just we're going to try and find and sell more of that stuff, and I think we can do it. But we're going to keep selling the things that we know it will sell because, having a full-time store means that we have to keep that as money coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't...
Consistency.
I can't just wait 2 months for that big item to sell. So.
Well, that's the beauty of, having a big inventory that we say all the time, but it's also, having that knowledge of, what will sell on a weekly basis. Just the regular stuff that you're able to source, It might not sell for super high, but you're like, I can buy that for $1. I know I can sell it for $30, We have that under our belt, daily.
Yep.
So that fills in, and then you can put your eye on bigger things in the meantime. And hopefully every month you're selling at least one big thing.
Right. Yeah. And, part of it is the kind of the excitement, too. The excitement of, I don't know if it will sell. That's kind of exciting, I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, like, some of the stuff I'm buying online for, like, on eBay, I mean, I'm hoping... It's just, you're taking, like, higher price risks and just hoping you can become more knowledgeable about this stuff as you, like, hone your skills of, like, buying, you know? It's fun, you know, when you have a little bit of money to play with, if you're not just, like...
It's money and time. That's really the big thing. It's all about time, you know?
Exactly. Time to research on eBay, time to go out and scavenge, time to look up completed listings, time to look at every single, 99-cent starting auction for X crazy designer item.
I mean, that's what James taught us, who sells the high-end art, or even Chris the Coin Guy, you know? I mean, he may only sell, and I've said this many times, but it's so true, you know? He may only sell... I don't know exactly 20 or 30 items a month. I don't know.
But the turnover is high. I mean, the price is high.
He makes good profit.
Yeah.
However, to find those 20 or 30 items,
he's on eBay.
He works full time. I mean, it's a full-time job to, a look through. Yep. I'm sure he's looking through, 500 items to find that one that he can buy. And then, finding that one that he can buy, he has to get into the auction, wait it out, and,
And so I think the question always is, with that method, I'm just like, why aren't the collectors or the high-end people doing that to get a cheaper price? And the answer is, they don't have the time and they have the money. So they're like, oh, this thing's $300? Great, that's a steal.
Right.
And we're like, what? There's like 10 of them that are like 99-cent auctions, or whatever. But it's just different people,
Yeah.
So that's always an interesting...
Yeah. And I guess to round this out, I guess that's what we're thinking of doing, is looking more on trying to buy on eBay.
Right.
And then resell on eBay. And, it's like we said at the beginning of this podcast, we're willing to learn. I didn't think it was possible because of what you just said. Like, why could you buy something cheap and resell it for higher on eBay? Like, it doesn't make
Same
sense.
audience.
But you know what? People have proven it's true, so we're going to try it.
Right.
The other way we're going to do it, as we talked about, we're going to start going to some higher-end auctions that we usually don't go to, but we're going to go there, and it's just like, I guess when you go anywhere, it's just
what's what.
We have to be willing to, instead of only spending like $100 or $200 like we like to do, we may have to be willing to throw down $700.
Yeah, just like,
and so we'll see.
Have a nice wad of cash in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And is there any other way that we think we might?
So yeah, I mean, it's like a high-end auction, eBay. Or, when you're at an estate sale in someone's house and there's like a proper signed painting or something, just be willing to do a little research before you buy it. And
so that's going to be our methods of doing that.
Yeah, why not? We should try.
Cool. Don't forget that you can call in and leave us a message that we will then answer and used on one of our weekly podcasts.
We hope you liked our last podcast with all the questions. We had a lot of fun answering and listening to all those.
Yeah, we're going to actually start doing it every week. That one we had kind of built up over a couple of weeks, and we thought maybe some of you might enjoy an extra special long one for the holidays. But
so this is the phone number. It's 540-407 8486, and you can just call and leave a message. No one's going to answer.
And we've already had a good handful of them since our last podcast, so that'll be great, and we will answer those. It's this week.
And if you want to support us, you can buy some of our mugs. People have been sending me hilarious phrases for the mugs, so there's a bunch of them. You can find that link on the sidebar of the blog. It's basically scavengerlife.spreadshirt.com. And you can buy them there, and I need to buy one because I need one for my desk.
So get one with a good,
good
harsh
saying.
It's motivational saying on it.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, thanks for being here, and this podcast will be over in
3, 2, 1.